my fiancée declared. I'm going on a girls' trip. No questions. I smiled and declared, have fun. Then I sent her dad the recordings from hotel. 17 hours later, her entire family disowned her. I, 32M, thought I had found my soulmate. 3 years together, engaged for 8 months, wedding planned for next spring. She was everything I wanted in a partner: intelligent, beautiful, ambitious. Her family adored me, especially her father, who treated me like the son he never had. I should have known something was wrong when she started working late more often, when her phone became permanently face down, when she suddenly needed space. The announcement came on a Tuesday evening while we were having dinner. She looked up from her pasta and told me she was going on a girls' trip to Miami with her college friends. When I asked about the details, dates, hotel, who was going, she cut me off sharply. No questions, she said. It was already planned, already paid for, and she needed this time with her friends before the wedding. I smiled and told her to have fun. Inside, my stomach was churning. In 3 years, she had never taken a trip without discussing it with me first. We shared everything: bank accounts, calendars, dreams. This sudden secrecy felt like a slap in the face. That night, after she fell asleep, I did something I never thought I would do. I checked her phone. The messages I found made my blood run cold. There were conversations with someone whose contact name was just a heart emoji. The messages were explicit, passionate, and recent. They were planning to meet in Miami. She had booked a couple's suite at the Fontainebleau. I sat in our bathroom at 2 a.m., staring at the evidence of her betrayal, feeling like my world was collapsing. But then something else took over: a cold, calculating anger. If she wanted to play games, I would play them better. The next morning, I acted completely normal. I kissed her goodbye, wished her a great trip, and even helped her pack. She seemed relieved by my easy acceptance, probably thinking she had gotten away with it. While she was at work, I made my preparations. I called my friend who works in private investigation. He owed me a favor from when I helped him through his divorce. I explained the situation and asked if he could help me gather evidence. He was reluctant at first, but when I told him about the wedding in 4 months and the joint assets we had accumulated, he agreed to help. We set up a plan. He would fly to Miami and position himself at the hotel. I would monitor her location through the family plan we shared. The goal was simple: document everything. She left on Friday morning, kissing me goodbye and promising to call every day. I told her I loved her and would miss her. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. My friend texted me updates throughout the day. She had checked into the hotel at 3 p.m. At 4:30, a man matching the description from her social media photos arrived. They embraced in the lobby like lovers who had been separated for years, not like people meeting for the first time. The photos and videos my friend sent me over the next 2 days were devastating. Dinner at expensive restaurants, walks on the beach holding hands, passionate kisses in the hotel lobby. They acted like a couple on their honeymoon, completely oblivious to the world around them. But the most damning evidence came from the hotel room itself. My friend had managed to get audio recordings from their room through methods I chose not to question. The conversations revealed everything: how long the affair had been going on, their plans for the future, and most shocking of all, how they had been laughing about me. She called me boring, predictable, and said she was only marrying me for financial security. He was her real love, her soulmate, her future. I spent the weekend in a strange state of calm. I organized all the evidence, created a timeline, and prepared for what came next. She called me twice, both times sounding happy and relaxed, telling me about the beaches and the shopping. I played the part of the loving fiancé perfectly. On Sunday evening, she returned home glowing and refreshed. She hugged me tightly and told me how much she had missed me. She showed me photos from the trip, carefully curated images of her and her female friends, none of which included her lover. She had thought of everything, except for the fact that I already knew the truth. That night, as she slept peacefully beside me, I made copies of all the evidence and prepared for the nuclear option. Her father had always been special to me. He was the kind of man I aspired to be: successful, principled, and deeply devoted to his family. He had built a construction empire from nothing and was known throughout the city for his integrity. His reputation meant everything to him, and his daughter was his pride and joy. More importantly, he was funding our wedding. The $80,000 reception, the honeymoon in Europe, even the down payment on our house, it was all coming from him. He had insisted on paying, saying it was his pleasure to give his daughter the wedding of her dreams. I knew that if anyone could make her face consequences for her actions, it would be him. On Monday morning, after she left for work, I drove to his office. His secretary knew me well and waved me right through. He was delighted to see me, asking about wedding preparations and joking about gaining a son. I told him I needed to show him something important about his daughter. His expression changed immediately. He could sense the gravity in my voice. I handed him a tablet with all the evidence organized chronologically. I watched his face as he went through the photos, videos, and audio recordings. The color drained from his cheeks. His hands began to shake. When he reached the recordings where she mocked me and called me boring, he actually flinched. But when he heard her laughing about how she was using both of us, his expression turned to stone. He asked me quietly if I was certain this was recent. I showed him the timestamps, the hotel receipts, everything. He sat in silence for a long time, staring at his desk. Finally, he looked up at me and said he was sorry, not just for what she had done, but for raising someone capable of such deception. He asked what I planned to do, and I told him I was calling off the engagement immediately. He nodded and said he supported my decision completely. Then he asked if he could keep copies of the evidence. I had expected this and handed him a USB drive with everything. He told me he needed time to process this, but assured me that there would be consequences. I went home and waited. She returned from work that evening in a great mood, chatting about her day and asking about mine. I told her it had been productive and left it at that. The explosion came at 11 p.m. Her phone started ringing incessantly. First her father, then her mother, then her siblings. She answered her father's call with a bright smile, probably expecting to discuss wedding plans. I watched her face change as she listened. The smile faded, replaced by confusion, then panic, then terror. She started denying everything, her voice rising to a near shriek. She looked at me with wild eyes, and I simply nodded. She knew I had told him. The conversation lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, she was crying hysterically. Her father had disowned her. The wedding funding was canceled. She was no longer welcome in the family home. Her mother wouldn't even speak to her. But that was just the beginning. Update 1. The next few hours were chaos. Her siblings called one by one, each conversation ending with them cutting contact. Her extended family, who had been so excited about our wedding, began blocking her on social media. Her father had shared the evidence with the entire family, and their reaction was swift and unanimous. She begged me to help her, to tell them it was all a misunderstanding. I calmly explained that I had simply shared the truth about her Miami trip. She screamed that I had ruined her life, that I was vindictive and cruel. I reminded her that she had ruined her own life the moment she decided to cheat. By morning, she was completely isolated. Her family had been her entire support system, and now they wanted nothing to do with her. She called in sick to work and spent the day crying on our couch, alternating between rage and despair. I began making my own preparations. I contacted a lawyer and started the process of separating our assets. Since we weren't married, it was relatively straightforward. The house was in my name, the cars were separate, and our joint accounts could be easily divided. She tried everything to win me back. She swore the affair was over, that it had meant nothing, that she loved only me. She promised to cut all contact with him and go to counseling. She even offered to sign a prenup, giving up all rights to my assets. I listened to it all with complete detachment. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Someone who could lie so easily, who could plan such elaborate deceptions, who could mock me behind my back while accepting my love and her father's money. The most pathetic part was when she tried to blame me. She said I had been distant lately, that I didn't appreciate her, that she felt unloved. She claimed the affair was my fault for not being attentive enough. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Update 2. By the end of the week, the social consequences were becoming clear. Her father was well connected in our city, and word of what had happened spread quickly through their social circles. The family's reputation for integrity made her betrayal even more shocking to those who knew them. Her job became uncomfortable as colleagues learned about the situation. Her boss, who had been invited to our wedding, was particularly cold to her. The professional network she had built through her family connections began to crumble. She moved out of our house and into a small apartment across town. I helped her pack, maintaining a polite but distant demeanor. She kept trying to engage me in conversation, to find some crack in my resolve, but I had moved beyond anger into complete indifference. The most satisfying moment came when she had to return her engagement ring. It had been her grandmother's ring, passed down through generations. Her father had specifically requested its return, saying she had proven herself unworthy of the family heirloom. She cried as she handed it to me, and I felt nothing. Her lover, meanwhile, had disappeared completely. When the affair became public knowledge, he apparently decided she wasn't worth the drama. She tried calling him repeatedly, but he had blocked her number. The man she had thrown away her entire life for had abandoned her the moment things got complicated. The wedding vendors had to be canceled. Since her father had been paying, he handled most of the cancellations himself. The venue, the caterer, the band, all of it disappeared with a few phone calls. The deposits were lost, but he didn't seem to care about the money. It was the principle that mattered to him. Update 3. 6 months later, I ran into her at a coffee shop downtown. She looked terrible, thin, tired, with dark circles under her eyes. She approached me hesitantly and asked if we could talk. She told me her life had completely fallen apart. Her family still wouldn't speak to her. She had been forced to find a new job in a different city because the social stigma had become unbearable. She was in therapy, trying to understand why she had made such destructive choices. She apologized, not just for the cheating, but for everything. For the lies, for the mockery, for taking advantage of my love and her father's generosity. She said she understood now that she had destroyed the best things in her life for a momentary thrill. I listened politely and told her I hoped she found peace. I meant it. I didn't wish her continued suffering, but I also felt no desire to comfort her or offer forgiveness. She had made her choices, and these were the consequences. As I walked away, I reflected on how different my life had become. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. I had learned that I was stronger than I thought, that I could survive the worst kind of emotional pain and come out intact. I had started dating again, slowly and carefully. I was more cautious now, more aware of red flags, but I hadn't become cynical. I still believed in love, just not with someone who could lie so easily. Her father and I maintained a cordial relationship. He would occasionally check on me, expressing regret for his daughter's actions. He had aged visibly since the revelation, the stress of disowning his child taking its toll. But he never wavered in his decision. His principles meant more to him than his comfort. The most important lesson I learned was about self-respect. For too long, I had been willing to overlook small signs of disrespect, to make excuses for behavior that should have been unacceptable. I had prioritized keeping the peace over protecting my own dignity. Never again would I allow someone to treat me as a backup plan while they pursued their real desires. Never again would I accept being mocked behind my back while playing the role of the devoted partner. I had learned to value myself enough to demand better. The revenge hadn't been about cruelty. It had been about truth. She had built her deception on the assumption that I would never find out, that her family would never know who she really was. By exposing the truth, I had simply allowed everyone to make informed decisions about whether they wanted her in their lives. The consequences had been severe, but they had been her consequences for her choices. I had simply refused to be complicit in the lie any longer. Looking back, I realized that the best revenge hadn't been her family's rejection or her social isolation. It had been my own recovery, my ability to move forward and build a better life without her. She had expected me to be devastated, to beg for her return, to accept whatever scraps of affection she was willing to offer. Instead, I had shown her that I was worth more than that. I had demonstrated that actions have consequences, that trust once broken cannot be easily repaired, and that some betrayals are simply unforgivable. The woman I eventually married understood this story and respected the boundaries it had taught me to establish. She knew that I would never tolerate deception or disrespect, but she also knew that I was capable of deep love and loyalty when it was genuinely reciprocated. Sometimes I wondered if my ex-fiancée had learned anything from the experience, if she had grown into someone capable of honest relationships. But mostly, I didn't think about her at all. She had become a cautionary tale in my past, a reminder of what I would never accept again. The recording from that Miami hotel room had changed everything. Not just because it exposed her betrayal, but because it forced everyone involved to confront the truth about who she really was. In the end, that truth had been more powerful than any revenge I could have planned.